Yo, what's going on everyone? It's me, it's Jinsula, fresh off of a new haircut. How do I look? So I basically went to my stylist, showed them a picture of Songgang, and then told them to go at it. And yeah, they gave me the say no more fam treatment, and they came up with this. So hopefully it looks good. I actually really like this haircut, and yeah, I'm going to be looking like this, hopefully, at least for the next week or two before my hair grows out too far, and I will have a hard time styling it. But in any case, today we're going to be talking about an upcoming raid battle, and this raid battle is actually super easy for what it is, and it is also one of the most relevant Pokemon that you can have in your collection. In fact, this raid boss is one of those that you're going to be using for a very long time, mainly because it is the absolute best non-mega grass type in the game, and you will definitely want to get yourself one that has high IVs. Now, the one caveat is, of course, that half of the world is not going to be able to raid this boss locally, and that is because when it comes to both Kartana and Celesteela, Niantic likes to break them apart depending on the hemisphere of the world. The northern hemisphere is going to be getting Kartana in raids, and the southern hemisphere is going to be getting Celesteela. Speaking of which, Celesteela is unfortunately not as relevant as Kartana, so if you're living in the southern hemisphere, make sure you get your remote raid passes ready, because Kartana is definitely the one to go after between the two. So real quick, let's go over how you could defeat both of these raid bosses, and then later I'm going to talk about why I think Kartana is so relevant. Let's start off with Celesteela, which is a Steel and Flying type Ultra Beast Pokemon, and it's going to only have two weaknesses, which is going to be Electric types and Fire types. Unfortunately, it doesn't have any kind of double weakness, but you will just want to bring your absolute best Electric types and Fire types. I'll get more into that later. Now, if you want the perfect IV of Celesteela, you will want one that is 1772, and if it's weather boosted by either windy weather or snowy weather, it's going to be 2216. The amount of trainers that you should bring range from about 3 to 5 trainers who are at least level 35, but if you want to challenge yourself, you could trio this Pokemon. You will just need to be fully maxed out with the absolute best counters. Now, let's go over those counters right now. The two Mega Evolutions that I suggest bringing include Mega Blaziken as well as Mega Charizard Y. Both of these Pokemon deal an insane amount of Fire-type damage, and they're definitely going to be the best Mega Evolution options up against Celesteela. There's also Reshiram, which is probably going to be the top Pokemon that you could bring, and then Shadow Raikou and Shadow Darmanitan are also going to be top picks. And if you happen to have yourself a good Xurkitree, that is another great option to bring up against Celesteela. And then don't forget about Zekrom, that is another Pokemon that's going to be really strong against Celesteela. Celesteela is a very tanky raid boss, and it also has the Charge Attack Bulldoze, which is going to be strong against both Fire types and Electric types, the two types that are strong against Celesteela. So you will want to watch out. Make sure you're bringing as many trainers as you can if you're looking to take down this specific raid boss. But next, let's move on to Kartana, which in my opinion is going to be the absolute best out of the two. This Pokemon is incredibly squishy considering that it is a glass cannon, and it also has a double weakness, which you should fully utilize. This Pokemon is a grass and steel type Pokemon, which means it's going to be weak against fighting types and fire types, but more specifically fire types, it's going to have a double weakness. If you want a perfect IV of Kartana, you will want one that is 2101, and if it's weather boosted by either sunny weather or snowy weather, it's going to be 2626. That is probably the easiest one you could remember for weather boosts, 2626, that's all you need to know. Now, depending on how many trainers you bring, this Pokemon will go down a lot quicker, but you could possibly do this as a duo and possibly even as a solo. That's how easy this boss is to take down. But if you want to defeat it comfortably, you will want to go with about 3 to 5 trainers that are at least level 35. That should almost guarantee you the win up against this raid boss. Now in terms of the counters, they're going to be pretty similar to Celesteela. You will want to go with either Mega Charizard Y or Mega Blaziken, and a full team of Reshirams, Shadow Darmanitan, Ho-Oh, all these Pokemon are going to be really good. It's basically going to be a DPS race with fire types, and that's really all you need to know. Kartana is double weak against fire, so just bring your absolute best fire types, no matter what they could be. Alright, so let's talk about Kartana. So among all of the raid battles that you could solo at high levels, I would say that this is the one Pokemon that is extremely relevant. In fact, it is probably the most relevant. I really do like the fact that when it comes to grass types, this Pokemon has the right moveset, and I do like the fact that it is extremely easy to take down, so a majority of trainers can actually pick it up. In terms of grass types, they're not often used when it comes to raid battles. There's very few bosses that are weak against grass types, but at the same time, this Pokemon does have the steel typing, so it can be somewhat of a good generalist as well. There are plenty of raid bosses that are weak against steel types, and Kartana can be a great second option in those specific raid battles, especially if they have a weakness to grass in some way. Unfortunately, Kartana has very little uses, if not at all, when it comes to PvP, but in terms of raid battles and PvE content, this is definitely one of those Pokemon you need to get. So make sure you go out and raid for this particular Pokemon, and like I said before, if you're living in the Southern Hemisphere, it is definitely worth a couple of remote raid passes, because this Pokemon is just so good. Like, you do not want to go on with your account without one, because this Pokemon is definitely one that's going to get you ahead. It's not going to be as good as some of the Mega Evolutions with the grass typing, but it's definitely comparable, if not better, to some of the Shadow grass types that are currently in the game. Yeah, this is a Pokemon that definitely matters, and you definitely need to get yourself one that is high IV. And of course, because the shiny form is now also available, you could possibly pick yourself up a Shundo, and that is definitely the dream. It is definitely a cool looking shiny in my opinion, and getting yourself a high IV one should be the goal for a majority of players. Now, when it comes to Celesteela, unfortunately this Pokemon does not have any kind of uses. It could potentially be a PvP Pokemon, but unfortunately the stats just do not justify it. And then when it comes to raid battles, there is of course Metagross, which is going to be way better than this Pokemon. And I really do think that's unfortunate, because Celesteela is another really cool looking Ultra Beast, and I kind of wish this Pokemon had some relevance, because I would love to use it in both raid battles and PvP, but unfortunately there's no real reason to do so. But yeah, in any case, both of these raid bosses are going to be in raids starting this Thursday, April 5th, and I do suggest you go out and raid for as many of them as you can, and if you live in the Southern Hemisphere, definitely start communicating with people who live in the Northern Hemisphere, whoever they may be, and then try to get yourself some remote raids in. But yeah, in any case, that's going to be it for this video. Let me know your thoughts regarding these two raid bosses down below. Are you planning to pick yourself up a Kartana? Definitely share how you're going to do it, and let's have a great discussion. And thank you so much for making it to this point in the video. If you ended up enjoying it, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe if it's your first time here. And also don't forget that little bell so you can stay up to date on whenever I upload videos. And I want to give a special shout out to every single patron on my Patreon. You make this channel content possible. If you want to support the Jinsula channel, the best way you could do so is by joining my Patreon. If you become a paid member, you get an exclusive spot on my Pokemon GO friends list. That means for remote raids and the friendship system, we will be able to interact together. So if that is something you are interested in, then definitely go and check out my Patreon. And if you want to support my channel in a very different way that doesn't require you to spend money and it's much easier, then make sure you go and follow me on social media. Go to any of the platforms that you see on screen, look for my handle at Jinsula, and make sure you give me a follow. And yeah, with that said, that's going to be it for this video. I'm Jinsula, be safe, have fun, love yourself, and I'll catch you all later.